Hello, my name is Robin Montesano. I'm about to present a video in honor of MS Awareness Week 2014. And the topics are research. Research has been done that you may not be aware of. And so I've selected 10 facts that you may have not known about multiple sclerosis. Number 1, the T-cell autoimmune concept. Many people are probably aware of the paradigm that what MS is a destruction of the myelin in the brain and the central nervous system as a result of T-cells that have gone awry, and thus it's termed an autoimmune disease. But there are studies that show in humans it has yet to be proven, despite biopsies and autopsies done on lesions of acute MS. In fact, stroke victims show myelin-reactive T-cells too, much like MS, according to a paper entitled Myelin Antigen-Reactive T-cells and Cerebral Vascular Diseases. That was printed in the journal Clinical Experimental Immunology in April of 1992. And in the paper entitled Multiple Sclerosis is Not an Autoimmune Disease, which appeared in the Archives of Neurology in 2004, people dying from acute MS were studied, and there were no signs that T-cells or myelin phagocytes of the immune system were at work in the MS brain. In addition, one other paper that cited that the T-cells were not present was a paper in Human Pathology in September of 1975 called The Pathology of the Early Lesion in MS. The second topic I'd like to cover are cigarettes. Research indicates that MS is increased by smoking, according to a paper that appeared in the American Journal of Epidemiology in 2001, Cigarette Smoking and Incidence of Multiple Sclerosis, as well as a factor in the progression of MS from relapsing remitting to secondary progressive. That was written in Brain 2005 in a paper entitled Cigarette Smoking and the Progression of Multiple Sclerosis. Even environmental smoke or passive smoke exposure was shown to increase the risk for developing multiple sclerosis, even if the person was not a smoker himself. That research was printed in Multiple Sclerosis in March 2011. Exposure to environmental tobacco smoke is associated with increased risk for multiple sclerosis. Cigarettes produce particulate matter from environmental tobacco smoke. Quote, particulate matter is also known as particle pollution, or PM. It is a complex of mixtures of extremely small particles and liquid droplets. Particle pollution is made of a number of components, including acids, organic chemicals, metals, and soil or dust particles. That was written in Tobacco Control 2004, Particulate Matter from Tobacco versus Diesel Car Exhaust, an Educational Perspective. Physicians for Social Responsibility included MS in this article. Particulate matter, well-documented cause of chronic disease, by Brian Monch, MD. Greater air pollution exposure is associated with lower intelligence, poorer motor function, attention deficits, and behavioral problems in children, decreased cognition in adults, higher rates of stroke, multiple sclerosis, etc., etc. So, the third topic I'd like to discuss is particulate matter is linked to MS, according to few studies, but one in particular that I just was able to locate was written in Transfusion, actually in 2002, and the title of the article was "Poor Air Quality Exacerbates Multiple Sclerosis," where there was a significant correlation between air pollution and MS relapse rates. The fourth topic I'd like to discuss briefly is vitamin D. The American Journal of the American Medical Association from January 20th, 2014 continues the theme begun in 1960 that MS is affected by levels of the hormone D3. The title of the paper was "Vitamin D as an Early Predictor of Multiple Sclerosis Activity and Progression." However, two extremely relevant facts about the particles from the UVB rays that the skin must absorb to make natural vitamin D that might not be known. The first would be that even in the right season of the year at the right latitude, the UVB photons may still be scarce if the air is full of particle pollution, which deflects the vitamin D source rays from reaching the ground. That can be discovered at www.epa.gov. The second relevant fact is unless blood tests are done to monitor the necessary levels of vitamin D3 in each individual, supplementation is still perhaps not reaching the biological levels which matter to your disease progression, and those levels should be tested by your doctor on a regular basis. The minimum reading would be 50 ng moles per liter. The fifth fact I would like to briefly cover are seasons for MS activity, attacks, or exacerbations. Because I was in Chicago for a number of years, I was able to hear a neurologist relay to a patient program audience that he observed that the month of October appears to be the heightened month for MS to be active. And what we don't realize is what occurs in the fall as winter approaches, besides the leaves that are falling off the trees. As the deciduous trees lose their leaves, the local environment does not have trees that are absorbing carbon dioxide and or creating oxygen. The second thing which is occurring as fall is turning into winter, at different seasons of the year, is that human breathing begins to undergo seasonal changes. Human Physiology, January 2014, there was a paper about this matter entitled "Changes in Functional Organization of the Respiratory System in Residents of Western Siberia in the Winter Season." The sixth topic, briefly, is nutrition and MS outcomes. Patients are told by some neurologists and some nonprofit organizations to eat quote-unquote healthy, especially in the areas of low fat and fiber, as they suggest would be advised to the general public. However, there are many examples where the type of nutrients being changed in a diet have affected cases of MS in both negative and positive outcomes. The negative outcomes I reference in a book entitled "Clues to the Cause, Questions for a Cure, the Poisons Causing Multiple Sclerosis Worldwide," September 2012. Specifically, Japan has seen more cases of MS at a higher degree with westernized diet entering the communities. Dr. Weston Price, in his book "Nutrition and Physical Degeneration," also saw a degeneration in health when native populations took in a more westernized diet. There are, however, just as many people that have seen positive effects from a change in diet and nutrition within the disease course of MS. Dr. Roy Schwenk wrote a book, The MS Diet. Terry Walls, MD, has a website, terrywalls.com. She has seen a change in her status after adjusting her diet. And myself, I have seen a change as well in the course of my disease, as well as found some relevance in childhood nutrition in my master's thesis of 2003. The next topic would be antioxidants, since we are on the topic of nutrition. Free radicals, or reactive oxygen species, are produced when inflammation is occurring, and in MS, the inflammation is occurring in the brain. There has been at least one publication in Central Nervous System Drugs in 2006, where there was a controversy as to whether vitamin C or vitamin E as antioxidants would help MS. The title of the paper was, Antioxidants in Multiple Sclerosis, Do They Have a Role in Therapy? However, there is a new oral drug, Tecfidera, or BG12, which is believed to be working as an antioxidant. Brain, March 2011 published, fumaric acid esters exert neuroprotective effects in neuroinflammation via activation of the NRF2 antioxidant pathway. Number 8, occupations which do and do not get MS. Rheumatology in July 2001, published a paper entitled Excess Autoimmune Mortality Among School Teachers, where teachers were observed to be the occupation which had the most deaths due to MS and autoimmune conditions in general. Other occupations which normally present MS: nurses, office workers, performers, all indoor environments. So, have you ever met a mailman with MS? Curiously, I have not. And the explanation I was provided by a neurologist is their access to vitamin D, which is very true, but it may not be the entire reason, and so is open to further hypothesis. Number 9 would be hyperbaric oxygen. There has been a history of intense political maneuvering in the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy in multiple sclerosis. According to the paper, The Controversy Over Hyperbaric Oxygenation Therapy in Multiple Sclerosis, in the Journal of Physicians and Surgeons from winter of 2005. However, past and present, there have been several doctors who have treated MS patients with success. Dr. Richard Nerber from Lauderdale by the Sea, Florida, Dr. William Maxfield from Bradenton, Florida, Dr. Alan Spiegel from Palm Harbor, Florida, Dr. Jacques Bach from Toulon, France, Dr. Boguslav Fischer from New York, New York, Dr. Philip James from Dundee, Scotland, Dr. M.P. Barnes from Newcastle, UK, Dr. Sheldon Gottlieb from Mobile, Alabama, and Dr. Paul Harch from New Orleans, Louisiana. So, we know for a fact there is a movement by neurologists and nonprofits to get more MS patients involved in deep breathing modalities, such as yoga, tai chi, and meditation. Deep breathing allows more oxygen to flow through your body. And the very last thing I would like to cover quickly are the clusters of multiple sclerosis. Nonprofits and neurologists still are in debate and controversy as to whether they exist. However, they do exist and have worldwide for many, many decades. I'm a person that was actually among a cluster where I grew up. So, in my book, Foods for the Cause, Questions for a Cure, the Poisons Causing Multiple Sclerosis Worldwide, I do identify a handful, if not a dozen. And one thing I want to make perfectly clear is that when you bring in the ATSDR or the CDC to study clusters, which some have been studied, there have been ways in which they have tested the soil and the water, but they have never tested the air and what is contained in that air. So I thank you very much. Hopefully I've given you some topics that you may further want to investigate. As I said, there's research behind every topic I just brought up. And if you would like to see the references I've used for this discussion, please visit Multiple Sclerosis on Facebook. The end.